Everyone, Farmington Mayor Nate Duckett, thank you for joining us for a special edition of the Mayor's Table. Today we're talking about the San Juan County Communications Authority, an important item that will be on this year's ballot, looking for a referendum to keep this facility up and running and on the top of its game. It's an important community service. Enjoy the show. Hi, everyone. Farmington Mayor Nate Duckett. Thank you for joining us for this special edition of the Mayor's Table. With me today is Dave Ripley, and Dave is the director of the San Juan County Communications Authority. It's a lot in that sentence there, Dave. But we appreciate you being on. We wanted to talk a little bit about what the Communication Authority does, and I know there's some important things coming up here on the ballot on November 2nd, which is just like next week. So pretty timely in this conversation. So welcome, and tell us, what does the Communication Authority do, and how long have you been there?
Well, thank you so much. I've been here for 12 years, a little over 12 years now. This consolidated 911 dispatch center dispatches for the entire region here in San Juan County, other than the Navajo Nation. And it's been in existence since 1994. And we've been live since April 11th, 1994, and we dispatch for the 3 city police departments and fire departments, the sheriff's office, San Juan County Fire. We have off and on over the years dispatched for state police, but currently we're not. They're dispatched today out of Albuquerque, up in this area. And we dispatch for air care, the helicopter out of the hangar in the hospital. And then we provide limited dispatch services to the local FBI, U.S. Marshals, Chaco Canyon law enforcement, Navajo Lake State Parks law enforcement, and on and on and on. Anything that's public safety related, we provide.
That's a lot of calls, Dave, is what that is.
It is. We handle about 1,000 incoming 911 calls per day.
Per day.
And so it's a lot of activity, and then we operate 4 or 5 radio channels at any given time, primary channels, and then we can do more on top of that if it's needed. But yeah, it's a busy center.
Well, I appreciate what you and your staff do. I mean, it's they're the individuals on the other end of that line, and in many cases it's non-emergency type calls, but certainly anybody in a dire situation, there's something that's happening to them and they're scared. Your folks are well trained in handling all of those calls. And I can tell you, as an individual who uses non-emergency dispatch on occasion, they're extremely professional and very helpful in the information they provide. So from me to you and your staff, thank you for what you all do. Obviously, your staff and your operations have been impacted in the pandemic, just like others have. How is our staffing holding up at the 911 center? It's a stressful job, and certainly right now there's a lot more calls out there, I'm sure.
Yeah, it is a very stressful job. It's hard for us to tell the public why we enjoy it, why we choose it as a career, because it's not, people aren't calling us because they want to tell us what a great day they're having. They're calling us because something has gone wrong,
right.
And often it's horribly wrong, and they're asking us to help them with that. And so it can be difficult. Right now, our staffing is down. We're short about 14 positions out of 48. And it's, we have a very low attrition rate. Our attrition rate runs around 6% or so, which is about a third of what it is normally in 911 dispatch centers nationwide. And so our people are very, very dedicated. They don't leave. They want to stay as long as they can. Our problem is that when they do leave, if a spouse has lost their job in the area and has to leave, that sort of thing, it's very difficult to find a replacement. And then it takes 8 to 10 months of intensive training to get them up to the point where they can work independently without direct, second by second supervision. And so it's a lot of training, and we kind of go overboard with training. Overboard probably isn't the right term because I don't consider it overboard,
Sure.
But We are a premier 911 dispatch center. We've had people from all over the nation contact me, and having heard about the training that we provide and how we do things, and want to know how they can emulate that. So we have a great reputation not only in the state of New Mexico, but all across the nation, because we're a training center. We put a lot of emphasis on that. With as difficult as the job is, probably the worst thing we could do to our people is not fully train them and support them. And so that's a big focus of what we do.
Well, I think that's very attributable then to the fact that you have good retention there. I mean, so many positions, and certainly in past careers of mine, I mean, one of the things that always gets brought up is, do you feel like you're getting the training to make you as valuable to the company as you possibly can? And I know when training lacks, you usually end up losing people. So
Right.
That's good to know. I wasn't aware that it was such a focused. Obviously, I knew that people were getting trained, but to be kind of a center of excellence, so to speak, where others are coming to learn from what we do here.
Yeah, it is. And we're also what's called ACE accredited, which is a medical dispatch accreditation that is extremely difficult to reach that level. It's a protocol that we use in the dispatch center for medical dispatching, and there are thousands of dispatch centers all over the world that use this protocol, and there are only around 200 or so that are able to meet this level of excellence to receive ACE accreditation, and we're one of them, and we're very proud of that. But that's just one of the many things that we do. Good enough isn't good enough. When it's people's lives that you're dealing with, you need to be the best you absolutely can be. So we put a lot of emphasis on it. It's also, when I started in 1984 in this industry, the average professional life expectancy of a dispatcher was 7 to 9 years. And by that point, they were so burned out, they just couldn't function any longer. And so that was accepted at that time. And luckily, things have changed over the years. Now they have to do a full 30 years to get the full retirement. And that's tough to get them that far when they're dealing with one emergency after another every day for 30 years. It really takes a toll on them. But we really work hard to make sure that we're supporting them.
It definitely takes a special kind of person. I just think in my daily life, the different fires that I have to put out, or family emergency situations, or the general public calls for service. But to be able to handle all of that is it an 8-hour shift, a 12-hour shift? What do the shifts normally run?
Right now they're doing 12s, and they're doing probably averaging 60 hours a week, because they're doing overtime on top of that.
I got to think for those folks, just to be able to mentally handle everybody else's problems on top of problems that you may have, definitely appreciate what they do there. Dave, while we're talking about this, if somebody was interested in getting into the call center as a career, where do they need to go?
They can go to the San Juan County government website for job to their job website, and search for us. And we're open. We've got the hiring process open right now until the end of the year.
Okay.
So if we find someone who's qualified, we're going to grab them and get them into the center as quickly as we can and start training.
What kind of prerequisites does somebody need to have? Is a college degree required? What is the...
That's kind of the unique thing about 911 dispatching. The only academic credential you have to have is a high school GED. And I've got people with high school GEDs working with people with masters, and they're all doing a fantastic job. So it's not about academic training, it's about character. It's about drive and determination, the ability to be mentally tough, those sorts of things. So the only thing we require is a high school GED or equivalent, and no felony convictions. I think when the public calls 911, they don't expect to have a convicted felon on the other end of the line. And if they've had a misdemeanor conviction in the last 3 years, we would not and could not hire them because of state requirements. If it's after 3 years, we can talk about it. It depends on what it is.
Sure.
Yeah, but the main thing is, we want people with good character that can do the job and are going to stick with us for a long time and do a fantastic job for the public. It's not a matter of if you'll ever call 911, it's when.
Sure. Well, a good listener, somebody who can communicate effectively, being able to take that information that's coming in a cool, calm, collected manner, trying to voice back. I mean, it is amazing to me what they do. So,
Yeah.
well, if people are interested out there, I think it's a great opportunity to get into, and certainly looking for qualified individuals. But Dave, it costs money to operate the San Juan County Communications Authority, and you're taking 1,000 calls a day. There's costs associated with this, and I know this is one of the issues that's coming up here on the November 2nd ballot. It's a referendum for a 1/16% increase in gross receipts tax. It would be county-wide, and as we discussed kind of off-air, that is associates to about 1 penny for every $20 spent on taxable items here in San Juan County. Would that be correct?
That is correct, yes.
And so what we've reached is a point, and I think this has been a conversation for a few years now, of we're really pressed on what we have available to budget for the Communications Authority. It's getting pretty slim and hard to cut the fat when there's not a lot of fat to cut anymore, and there's a need for us to put some additional funding into that program, which is obviously it's a center of excellence here, and it's something that's vital for this region. Can you educate us a little bit more about what that need is?
Well, my annual budget right now is running about $4.6 million. About 2/3 of that is payroll and benefits. The rest is paying for technology. So, things like my phone bill alone runs $250,000 to as high as $370,000 a year. And we get help from the state of New Mexico through the 911 fund, but that's only, right now we're getting a little less than $700,000 a year from that. And then every 5 to 7 years we upgrade our phone system. We just did an upgrade in the past few months. That was $886,000. So, expenses are climbing. They continue to climb, and we don't have any control over anything other than payroll. Most of the benefits we have no control over, and certainly the technology again. So, we've lost population in the area. Revenues are down. We've kept expenditures level for the past decade, which has really been difficult. Speaking of cutting the fat, we've cut as much fat as we possibly can. And if we have to cut any more, it's going to translate into a reduced level of service. And so we really need to find some way to provide some additional funding for this.
Well, and just speaking of payroll, I mean, in order to find those qualified people and retain those qualified people, you've got to have a competitive salary and opportunity to move up and earn additional wages. And that continues to go up, and we're certainly seeing that across all job sectors right now. Unfortunately, the inflation component of that is they're probably not making more money because they're paying more for their items. But I think that's got to be a big part of it too.
It is. That's part of why it's hard to attract people. If they can make pretty much the same level of wage, stocking shelves at Target, why would they come to dispatch where they're going to have to work 24/7? They're working shift work, holidays and weekends. They're having the responsibility of people's lives in their hands. And, it's a lot of stress and strain, a lot of training. Everything they do in the dispatch center is recorded, even their computer work, keystroke by keystroke, so that if something goes wrong, we can recreate the entire situation to figure out what we can do to support them so that it doesn't happen again. So that's pretty stressful to know that everything is subject to quality assurance, everything is monitored, huge amounts of responsibility, and it's not, some things you can script, but most things you can't, especially law enforcement situations. There's just no way to script it. You've got to have amazing critical thinking skills and make decisions on the fly, and you're not always sure if you're making the right decision or not. It's based on your training, and we can't train them for every situation they're going to experience. What we do is give them a toolbox, and so from that, knowing what our mission is, what we're trying to accomplish, and those sorts of things, then based on that, they make decisions about what's in this circumstance, what is the best decision I can make.
So with the additional, and I think what we understand is that 1/16% will raise $2 million. With the additional $2 million, where do you see those dollars going?
It's probably mostly going to go for to keep our technology up and running. We've held off on replacing certain systems that are past due because we haven't had the money for it. So it goes to the reliability of the 911 system. It also goes to things like Smart 911, as an example, is a software product that we use. It costs $46,000 a year, so it's not overly expensive, but not every center in the United States has it. We were the first in New Mexico to incorporate this software. And what it does is it allows the public to go to smart911.com and enter a profile into the system. So, and with the phone numbers that they would call us with, and then when they call, because they're using that phone, it pops up on the dispatcher screen, and it could be health information. It could be, in the case of a house fire, it could be information about how many people live in the home. It could be information about pets. It could be maybe your home is hard to find, and so directions are in there. It also allows us to initiate a texting session with someone on a cell phone. So right now, no one can call 911 and text to us, or they can call us, but they can't just text to us, right?
Okay.
So that's technology that is coming at some point, but it's still a ways away. So right now, we have several speech and hearing impaired folks here in this county that when they need our services, the only way they can communicate with us is through texting. So with this technology, we can initiate a texting session with them because they've entered a profile that pops up and says, I'm speech and hearing impaired, I need to text, and then we can initiate a texting session. That's technology we think is really important, but it could go away if we don't have the funding for it.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, and I think for people who are watching this, and certainly I hope they share this information, the Smart 911 program that is available. Encourage your neighbors, your friends, your family to put that information on there if in the situation. Certainly if somebody has got a speech impairment or hearing impairment, it's going to be vital that they still be able to communicate. So I would just encourage the population to look into that. And it's just smart911.com. Is that
right
where they need to go?
Yeah, that's all it is. It's extremely safe. The information is spread out over 3 different servers in 3 different states. It's highly protected, and it's free to the public.
Okay. Dave, we the public may ask some questions. What are the most common questions that are asked of you when you're kind of educating folks about the center itself and kind of this 1/16%? I know you can't tell people to vote for it, but I think just providing that education so that the voters can make an educated vote. What else would you add to that?
I would add that when you have an emergency, you want a system that's stable and up and running. You want people that are highly trained, that know how to use the technology, and it takes money. And without that, we're not going to be able to provide the same level of services. So, it boils down to the question of, is a life worth a penny? That's all we're asking, is about a penny for every $20 spent. If you find value in being able to call 911 and get the service that you need, then vote your heart. But one of the things I'm very grateful for and proud of is that wherever I go to talk to people, every place I go, someone comes up to me and tells me a story about when they called 911, and it's always the positive, how wonderful our people were, how calm, the ability to provide direction and help them and get help there quickly, and those sorts of things. And so we just want to maintain the level of service that we're able to provide to the community. That's what drives us, even though it's really a miserable job. We're proud of the fact that we're able to provide that service. Very few people can do the work that we do, and of those that can, very few are willing to do it.
Sure.
And so it's really important for us to take care of this community and the people here and all the infrastructure and everything else. And so that's why we've put this on the ballot, so we can maintain the level of service.
Well, it may be one of those community service operations that gets overlooked. I don't know if people think about it in a way that it is a community service, but 1,000 calls a day, and that's 30,000 calls a month. And that ranges from everything. I can't imagine the stories that you have heard since 1984. We could write a full encyclopedia set of novels about. But I think it maybe even in my mind, I don't think about it as a community service, but it is. And it's something we need. I read recently here in Denver where there was either the call center went down or something happened, but everybody's 911 calls were being put on hold and nobody was coming back on to take care of it. And I think in many of those situations when individuals, when they're calling 911, it's that dire situation, and to be put on hold and not have somebody else on that line, certainly in my mind triggers a very emotional and scary thoughts for them. So I think it is something worth investing in, something we got to continue to be the best that we can at. And I appreciate that is also your attitude and what you bring to the table there as the director. And there's a standard level of excellence that we want to meet each and every year, and that's what accredited agencies have to do in order to maintain that accreditation. So, Dave, I appreciate you coming on and taking the time to talk to us about it. I encourage our voters to get out November 2nd, support this penny, so to speak. It's an interesting way of framing it. A penny is a life worth a penny. Absolutely, of course. I don't think anybody can argue with that. But it's something we need to invest in and continue to keep up. Any final words before we head off into next week?
No, I just would like to convey to the public that I appreciate the support that we receive at 911. We're not out there for the public to see constantly, but people do know about us, and wherever we go, we feel a lot of support. And again, it's not a matter of if you'll ever call 911, it's when you're going to call 911. What are you going to receive on the other end when you do?
Absolutely. Well, it's about investing in people and people that are dedicated to serving this community, and I encourage folks to get out as voters. Let's get out to the polls and make our voice be heard. Dave, thanks for being with us. Thank you again to your staff as well for what they do. And we will see you again here next time on the Mayor's Table. Thanks for tuning in.